In today's video, we have another award winner to discuss. We have a potential suspension coming from last night's game. We have some trade rumors involving teams like the Oilers and Penguins possibly hooking up on a deal. We also have some rumors concerning the Boston Bruins, as well as the future of Blues captain Alex Pietrangelo. We'll discuss all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Of course, today we're recording indoors here again. Obviously, we have the weather outside not really being the most cooperative. We've had a lot of rain off and on the past couple of days, so it's just easier to do this. We will probably get back to doing an outdoor video sometime in the next day or two, so stay tuned for some different scenery here as we change things up here pretty much on a daily basis, trying to keep the set as fresh as we possibly can. Now, of course, we have a fair bit of little news items to get through here before we jump into the trade rumors for today. Coach Bruce Cassidy, the Boston Bruins, has won the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year, so he was honored, and that was announced last night. Of course, his fellow nominees that he's up against were Elaine Vigneault and John Tortorella, who finished 2-3 in voting, respectively. I did see a list of all the final votes posted on Twitter last night as well. It was kind of confusing how some of the writers, how they voted. I mean, not to say that Cassidy doesn't deserve the award. I think he's been a great coach for a long time, but it just seemed a little odd to me how the voting was done, how so many great coaches just don't seem to get the love. So I'm not really sure in that regard how voters make their decisions, but at the end of the day, Cassidy had a great season for the Bruins and certainly deserved that award, and nice to see him finally be recognized because he's been a great coach there for some time. Now, as I mentioned, we could have a potential suspension coming out of last night's game between the Islanders and the Lightning. We saw Lightning forward Alex Killorn deliver a late hit from behind on Islanders forward Brock Nelson. So the puck was long gone, so it was quite late, and he nailed him from behind, head went into the boards. It was kind of an ugly scene. He was given 5-minute major in a game misconduct, which I thought was more than fair, and player safety has announced that he's also having a hearing today, so he very well could be suspended further. Now, of course, they could come back and rule that they feel a major penalty was sufficient, but more often than not, when they have these hearings, there usually is at least a one-game suspension come from it. So I guess we'll see. I mean, the Lightning played last night with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. They were down Killorn early after being kicked out. Braden Point got hurt and was out for a while as well. So there was a stretch of that game where they were down to 9 forwards, and they still managed to pull off the win. So it was a great win. I know watching John Cooper celebrate at the end there when Kucherov scored really late was quite the sight. It was certainly fun to watch. So, you know, for the most part, the Lightning are really coming through big time without some of their top guys. So obviously, I think the Islanders are going to have their hands full with them for the remainder of that series. We had some update as well from Pierre LeBrun on TSN Insider Trading talking about when next season could get underway. I know the NHL had put out some prospective dates. Of course, they were subject to change. Of course, they were aiming for training camps to be mid to late November, with a December the 1st start time for the first games for the 2020-2021 season. But now it looks as though it might be more likely for a January start. I know Pierre LeBrun did interview Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, and of course he couldn't really give any firm answers, but the way things are looking right now, that does seem to be that January appears to be a little bit more likely. And as I've mentioned before, the NHL and many of its teams cannot afford to run full seasons on just TV revenue alone. They need to be able to get some fans in attendance if at all possible to kind of help with things, because a lot of these teams just can't lose that much money. They won't survive if this drags on for too long, too many years. So obviously I think they're going to wait as long as they can to try to get fans in attendance, even if it's not a full capacity arena. They can get at least 25-30% or something to that effect. That will go a long way to help with things along with TV revenue, etc. So we'll see, but it could be more of a January start time than December, which could also have another impact on another hockey item here as well, which is the World Junior Championships. Now, of course, the World Juniors are slated to be in Edmonton, Alberta this year. Of course, that's one of the hub cities here for the NHL's return to play. And there's been word that Hockey Canada has been watching that very closely and seeing how successful it's been. They haven't had any positive tests, and things have gone extremely well. So it is possible that Hockey Canada, where they're hosting in Edmonton, could talk to the International Ice Hockey Federation about having that bubble concept for the World Juniors, which is usually getting underway around Boxing Day. So they might use that same type of concept in that regard and have all the games in Edmonton instead of Edmonton and some of the other communities around them that were supposed to help host with that tournament. But another thing too, with the NHL season maybe being delayed until January, it could possibly open things up that we get more elite talent coming to that tournament, because every year we kind of wonder some of the top talent, if they're going to go straight to the NHL, will they be available for that tournament? Where their NHL teams loan them to their international teams for that, to take part in it and whatnot. And obviously with the season starting later, that might be, a case where we get more top talent, just like we did a number of years ago when the NHL was locked out for a season. Obviously, really helped get a lot of high-end talent at the tournament, and it could make for an even more entertaining tournament. So we'll see what happens, but those are the latest updates when it comes to next season getting started. We also had another quick update on the Washington Capitals coaching situation. LeBron again reiterates the fact that they're basically going to narrow down to 3 guys, all very experienced, all are going to be somewhat costly to sign as their new coach, whether it be Peter Laviolette, Gerard Gallant, or former Leaf bench boss Mike Babcock are all in the mix, trying to decide who they want to hire. All 3 of those coaches still have term remaining with the clubs that they were previously let go from as well, so that could maybe play into things too. So we'll see where the Caps go, but either way, they're getting themselves a very experienced coach for sure. Now, we also have reports as well that Senators defenseman Mark Borowiecki likely will be heading to free agency. Doesn't mean for sure that he won't re-sign in Ottawa, but his agent has put a statement out indicating that they're going to test the waters and see what else might be out there. There was comments from GM Pierre Dorion back, I think it was back in February. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was before the season stopped, that indicated that he wanted to sign Borowiecki and wanted him to be a Senator for life. But as I mentioned in our Senators offseason plan video, I found it really odd that no contract negotiations really have seemed to really be taking place during the NHL pause. There were reports that they had some dialogue before the season stopped, but ever since then there's been nothing, and it's just really been confusing. And if they wanted to do that, he's not a player who would cost a lot of money. It would be pretty easy to make that happen, so it's kind of confusing as to why it hasn't. So could he still sign in Ottawa? It's possible, but as longer this drags on without having any of the dialogue from the team, it just seems more likely that it's not going to happen. But we'll have to see what happens and what he can fetch for himself when free agency opens on October the 9th. Now, as I mentioned, we have some trade rumors to talk about today, and one of the ones I want to look at is between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Edmonton Oilers. Now, we have a couple of points here from Insider Trading on TSN. First, Pierre LeBrun noted that the Oilers and the Penguins did have conversations about Matt Murray. That has been confirmed, and it's believed the asking price from Pittsburgh to obtain Matt Murray to Edmonton was their first-round pick. So the Oilers apparently felt that was too rich of an asking price and politely declined from there. Now, it doesn't mean that talks could not resume, but it looks as though we kind of have a better idea of what the bar would be set here from Rutherford for what he's looking for to get in return for Matt Murray. Now, I realize he's got a good resume with 2 Stanley Cups on there from his first 2 years of his NHL career, but he's really been inconsistent ever since, and his play has declined. I'm not sure that he's really going to get that, knowing that he's a restricted free agent who's likely going to get $5 to $6 million through an arbitration case if it goes that far. So personally, I don't see teams giving up a first-round selection. So I'm not sure where that's going to go. He's likely going to have to change what he's looking for. But there is confirmation now that those talks have taken place. So I'd love to know, especially from Oilers fans out there, what your thoughts on that would be. Obviously, Holland said no to the deal. But would Murray be a player to come in to shore up their goaltending that you would like to see them make the acquisition for? And what kind of price tag would you be okay with? I mean, obviously the Oilers, have some interesting prospects they could consider dealing as well, but most of that's on the blue line, and it could really hamper their future as well. So if they don't want to do a first-round pick, I'm not really sure what that counter offer could have been going to the Penguins, but we'll see if they have further discussions or not. But staying with the Penguins, TSN's Darren Dreger also mentioned some comments about Penguins trade rumors here as well. Dreger went on to say that a lot of the rumors surrounding defenseman Chris Letang right now, that he's not sure how much legitimacy there is to those, and that he doesn't really think that Rutherford's out there shopping Letang pretty hard. Now, could he have had inquiries on him? Certainly possible, but he does not think that a lot of that talk is as legit as we may have thought a few days ago. Now, he did mention there's a lot of other chatter around several other players on the Penguins, which shouldn't be a huge surprise. He mentioned players like Jared McCann, Nick Bukestad, even Patrick Hornqvist. Zach Astor-Reese is another player. Of course, Matt Murray that we already talked about. There's a lot of players there who could be trade bait for the Penguins, and I do think that they're going to continue to find a different mix within their forward group. As I mentioned back a while ago, I think for the most part their blue line is relatively set. I think they could end up with a blue line trade of some sort, maybe as a part of a bigger deal, depending on what else they decide to do. But I think Murray will be moved, and I think we could see maybe some of the other players mentioned either in a package with Murray or in separate deals to shake that forward group up if they're able to go down that road. But the forwards that were mentioned, they've all kind of been linked to trade rumors in the past. Would not be surprising at all to see any of those players possibly be moved, like I said, on their own or in a package deal. But for as far as Letang goes, even if they do want to consider moving the defenseman, given his age, contract, and health report that's from the past, I don't see that being very likely and easy to do. Now, in regards to the Boston Bruins, there's also a couple of articles. One from Joe Haggerty of NBC Sports, is another through The Athletic, talking about the future of Jake DeBrusk, who's a restricted free agent, and wondering about the possibility that he could be moved. And they also ponder the future of defenseman Torrey Krug. Now, Torrey Krug posted a picture, I believe it was on his Instagram. It was like a nighttime city line shot of Boston. Some felt it was a bit of a cryptic message because there was no text or words with it, and then they kind of wondered if it might have been a way or like a goodbye message. But sometimes I think media might read too much into players' social media posts. But regardless of what happens, I think at the end of the day here, Torrey Krug has made it pretty known, pretty clear that he needs to look after himself with all the uncertainty in the world, that if he can get himself a longer-term contract for what he feels is fair value, that he's going to take that. And the odds of it being with Boston are pretty slim. I think Boston definitely would not go into the $7 million plus range on Krug. I think it would have to be a fair bit less. I don't know if he's going to even get upwards of $6.5 million with Boston. So if another team comes along and is willing to give him 5, 6, 7 years anywhere and more money, I think he's going to take that deal and move on. At the end of the day, I think he loves being in Boston, but I think the contract he's going to command is going to be too rich for the Bruins to be able to handle within their salary cap situation. He's already made it clear numerous times through interviews that he's not taking a short-term deal. He wants a long-term deal, and he feels he can get that, and it's a fair market value out there to be able to achieve that. So I guess we'll see what happens with Krug. But in regards to Jake DeBrusk, they referenced the fact that they felt that guys like Jack Studnicka as well as Trent Frederick could grab bigger roles with the team next year. And at the same time that DeBrusk needs a new contract, likely going to be looking for a pretty hefty raise. And even though he's been a pretty good player for them throughout his entry-level contract, he is a bit of an inconsistent scorer. Didn't have a great playoffs, only putting up 2 points in 10 games. And there's some rumblings that maybe he could be traded. Obviously, the Bruins have to be careful with this, though. I think they have a lot of great players on that team. Obviously, they had the top regular season record. Obviously, faltered in the playoffs. But a lot of the top guys that allows them to contend year after year are getting up there in years and are, they're going to start to decline here. They're not quite the same they used to be. You got Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, David Krejci, Zdeno Chara, Tuukka Rask. They're not exactly spring chickens anymore. And they start trading away some of these younger pieces. They lose Krug, trade DeBrusk. They could be an older team that might even continue to struggle. So I certainly think it's possible a DeBrusk trade could happen. A lot of it likely will depend on what he wants for contract and what kind of money he's looking for, because where he's coming out of his ELC, he's not going to have arbitration rights right now. So, if it could drag on, and it's possible that's a contract we could see go well into the season if they can't come to terms on a new deal or if he's not traded. So could DeBrusk move on to a new team? Certainly possible, but we'll have to stay tuned here what Don Sweeney has up his sleeve. He also mentioned that he does have no problem with Tuukka Rask. He sees him coming back. Mentioned the possibility of Chara returning as well. He's a big part of their organization. So we'll see what Sweeney does, but it is expected that he will shake things up in some regard to see if he can get this team moving forward here for next season and beyond. And lastly here, I want to update the future of Alex Pietrangelo, the captain of the St. Louis Blues. Negotiations have not gone the best since the season has ended in regards to his new contract. The pending unrestricted free agent apparently is being offered somewhere around a 5-year deal, shy of $7 million is what was being reported out there. And obviously that's a lot lower than what he's looking for. I mean, $7 million for Pietrangelo probably isn't going to cut it. Now, of course, because of everything going on, I'm not sure what he's going to be able to command on the free agent market, but a lot of the top NHL insiders feel that a lot of the top guys like Petro and Taylor Hall are still going to get paid appropriately, even though teams obviously are losing money, lost revenue, and all of that stuff with the flat cap. So in regards to Pietrangelo, though, the remarks from the Athletic article indicate that he's pretty frustrated with how things have gone. Obviously, to see the Blues bring in guys like Justin Falk and Marco Scandella and sign them to extensions before getting his deal done is kind of, you know, a little bit hurtful to the guy who's been basically, you know, raised through their organization. They drafted him, been a big part of it, helped them win a Stanley Cup, and their captain for a while. And to see other guys get looked after first was just a bit hurtful in his opinion. And there was also a comment saying that if his wife wasn't from St. Louis and he had a young family, that he'd probably already be frustrated enough that he'd say, I'm done, see you later, I'm going to test free agency and see what's out there and move on. But obviously, where his wife is from there, they have a young family, he's probably going to try his best not to uproot them. I think ideally he does want to stay, which is, you know, been abundantly clear all along, but it's been a frustrating process for him. Apparently, he's looking for closer to the Roman Josi type of money, but would be willing to accept less. Of course, we know Josi signed around $9 million. Pietrangelo probably would sign somewhere between 8.5 to 9, but they have a little bit more ways to go here to up their offer to keep the captain in St. Louis if they're going to do that. They have just under a month now to come to terms before free agency officially opens. We saw them trade Jake Allen to free up some space. I think guys like Alex Dean, Tyler Bozak are certainly real possibilities that could be moved to free up more space as well. And for GM Doug Armstrong, maybe it's a matter of more about freeing up cap space gradually here before they up their offers. I'm not sure, but it has been kind of confusing and odd how they've treated their captain throughout this entire process. They could have started negotiating an extension as early as last summer, and it just seems to be, I don't know, I just found it odd how they've gone about doing their business here and bringing in all these other guys, getting other contracts looked after, and just kind of leaving him hanging this whole time. So do you think that the Blues will come back and offer more money to keep their captain in St. Louis? Or if he tests free agency, where is he going to end up? I mean, if he's looking for $8.5 to $9 million, I know there's been a lot of talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Pretty much every good right-handed defenseman out there has been linked to them in some regard because that's what they're looking for. I just don't see how they could make that work. They'd have to give up so much off the books in other areas that it's kind of crazy to think about. Obviously, there's not a ton of teams out there who I think can really pony up that kind of money without really setting back their team and cutting salary in a lot of other ways. So let me know where you think is a good landing spot down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.